Hello again, everyone. It's good to have you with us for this event. It figures to be an exceptional one that doesn't need any build-up.
Are you ready?
Don't ever give up. Don't ever stop fighting.
This is the main event of the evening.
Athletes, huddle up. It's time to begin. Get focused. Let's go.
Welcome to One-on-One Live with Coach Blue and Athletic Director Marissa. So happy to have you guys here. Thanks so much for joining us. This will be rebroadcast as a podcast tomorrow. So if you are in and out, or if your boss catches you, don't lose your job over it. You can listen to this later on. But we do have a few platforms open now. It looks like we're able now to take some calls. We're not sure how that's going to work. So one of you might be the guinea pigs for that. You never know. On the flip side, I want to thank you all for joining and for sharing this podcast. We greatly appreciate you guys doing that. This is your weekly call-in show where we do a host of questions pertaining to mental health awareness, complications therein, maybe some addiction news, topics that you have, whether it be in relationships, core communication stuff, whatever is on your mind or in your heart. We want to help maybe kind of tease some of that stuff out and get you some guidance and some direction.
Oh yeah. As
always, Coach Blue Robinson, coach of Addict to Athlete, mental health therapist, addiction counselor,
and Marissa Robinson, recreational therapist.
Yeah, absolutely. You just celebrated her birthday yesterday.
And today.
Happy belated birthday yesterday and today, because you're a leap year baby. So
right at midnight.
You get 2 days for the price of one, right?
Heck yeah.
That means on the real day we have to really go hard, party hard, right?
Yep.
Next year.
11 3/4.
Yep. Next year you turn 12, so we'll do it. That'll be awesome. But listeners, thank you so much for all that you guys do. We want to give a special shout out and thanks to all of our Patreon subscribers. You guys make this possible. It's because of your help that we're able to push this podcast out further, get us the things we need from our hosting platform right down to the equipment that you see here. We're able to do that because of you, and I want to thank each and every one of you. To do so, if you want to become a Patreon subscriber, jump on patreon.com/addictoathlete, and you'll see a bunch of different tiers to choose from. They all come with their special perks, bonuses, and features. But we love you all the same. Do you have the list of those who we can thank today?
Absolutely. So we want to start with thanking our super fans, Christy Case, Brock Ellerman, Patrick Forsyth, Sensei KP Brown, Chris Williams, Brett Frew, Scott Foster, Holly Davies, Tara Butson, Jerem Thurston, Tracy Whitby, Steve Riggs, and Karen Hardy.
Thank you.
Thank you, superfans.
Absolutely.
Our rookies, Wendell Wood, Earl Dyer, Sherry Polson, and Sione and Mary Inuk.
Love them.
Thank you. And our pro level is my dad, Gary Thurston. Thank you, Dad. And our champion level subscribers is Shad and Freya Robinson, Ron and Dee Loesch, and Andrew Baird has now upped his pledge from a pro to becoming a champion.
Wow, so, Andrew, thank you so much, Andrew. Brother. Yeah, that is awesome. I look forward to doing some more runs with Andrew this year. There's a lot going on. I know that I got to run with him when we pushed Emma, and he pushed somebody else. He didn't push Emma. I did.
Yeah.
The neatest thing about that was he's like, don't wait for me. And then all of a sudden, bam, he took off and was gone.
Yeah.
And so he had Abby, I had Emma, and away they went. And they actually came back and picked me up. So thank you, Andrew. You hold a very special place in my heart, brother.
He's a good guy.
But again, Addict to Athlete, Patreon, if you want to jump on there, it's patreon.com/addictoathlete. Well, listeners, we got lots to talk about today. We're just freshly back. This is why we missed our podcast on Monday. We returned from a little scant down to Las Vegas, Nevada to run the Hard Rock 10K with about, 35,000 other people?
35,000. That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people in one place.
It was a lot of people.
Absolutely. And it was great times. It was really one of those things where you've got to see it to believe it. We were actually able to run with Sensei KP and Holly and Josh and the cool thing about the Coach Holly, I didn't know she was going to be there till like the week before, and I'm like so excited to have her there.
Yeah.
But it was a great experience. This is an interesting run, especially when you look at it through the eyes of sobriety. you're going down to the place that just bleeds, like addiction, right? I mean, think about it, from legalized substances down there to drinking, in public, to gambling, and to the sex trade. Everything goes on down there has a component to addiction. And it's an interesting thing when you take a step out of it and you look at it vicariously through a different set of eyes.
A different lens, yeah.
And it was really kind of a cool thing because we go down there and it's kind of a pinnacle race for the simple fact of there's so much to, to take in. You're literally running down the Las Vegas Strip.
One of the, 2 times a year they shut down the Strip.
Yeah.
And we're able to run down it at night with all the lights and...
A little heads up to the race organizers. You kind of botched the beginning. You bottlenecked us, and we were kind of sitting in place with, again, 35,000 people before we got to go through and walk the quarter mile to the starting line, which was funny. Hard rock, you gotta fix that. That was a little was mayhem. Yeah, that's crazy. But the atmosphere, the music, everything was awesome. It was such a great experience. And again, it really does kind of like, I don't know, it echoes like what change and what happens when you shift your directions from all of that, addiction to doing something of greater value. And, when you run through the Strip, you're constantly reminded of all that stuff, but you're doing something of greater value. You're kind of, leaving it behind, so to speak, right? You're erasing and replacing. And so, Marissa, this is the first time you got to go out there and experience it. I mean, you saw it from the sidelines last year, and even with a interesting Achilles tendon issue, you guys got out there. What did you notice? What was different between participating versus, spectating last year?
It was much better to be on the road rather than on the side and cheering. It was much colder this year, so I didn't really love that. But yeah, I don't usually get peer pressured into doing races. If I want to do a race, I'll do it. If I don't, I don't. No big deal. But last year when I watched you and Josh do it, I was just so enthralled with the energy. There's just, the people, the music, the lights. It was amazing. And I was like, I'm going to do this race. So, even though I was injured and it took much longer than I wanted it to, it was also much nicer because I just had to pretty much walk it. And so I was on the Strip longer and really enjoyed it a lot.
And there's so many people there that there's no way you're ever going to come in dead last. That's what's funny.
Yeah.
I mean, even the person that comes in last, I think, comes in with a group of people. Does that make sense, right?
For sure.
I'm not sure how that works, but the neatest part about it is just the whole opposite mindset. It's what once was to what is. It pretty much defines what addict athlete stands for. Yeah. Erasing the old, replacing it with something of greater value, being able to be kind of a walking embassy of recovery. I got lots of people that kind of stopped and talked to KP and I, and we're talking a little bit about, if you can pat us on the back and say, hey, good job during the bullpen, people were talking about it. And it was kind of one of these things where you never know when you're going to be the catalyst for someone else to take that journey. We put out a little video today about not remaining anonymous anymore. And that was one of the things that we really were nervous about when we first started this team was what happens when people start understanding that, Addict to Athlete is a recovery support group. We've since expanded to mental health and a few other things, but nonetheless, it was one of these things where it's just awesome to see how many people are also on this journey.
Yeah.
As we were walking up to the starting line, another lady had a bib number on the back of her shirt, much like what we did with our proxy bibs.
Yeah.
And it said, running in memory of, and it was this young man's name, Caleb, I think it was. And it was awesome because I asked her about it, and she's like, it was my son who had a brain tumor, and he's doing okay now, but she's running for him. And I got thinking, how many people are really in this 35,000 pool are running for something greater than just, the experience of running down the Strip?
Yeah.
Probably quite a bit.
Oh, I'm sure. I know a lot of people are really motivated by being able to have a bigger purpose behind their running. Even, our concept of just doing it for yourself and going out and trying to erase maybe negative things that you've done in Vegas to something very, very different by running down the Strip and doing something physical rather than using substances. It's still, I'm sure a different shift in how do you change your brain to this is Sin City to
a recreation spot. Yeah.
Yeah. but I think it's a great way to start in trying to make and create new experiences and a new life.
So keep an eye out on the YouTube channel. We got some videos that'll be coming out promoting a little bit about what we did in Vegas sober and the race itself. So good experience all the way around. I ran proxy through that race for a recent podcast guest, Ed Bish, his son Eddie. So I was able to run for him. You ran for one of our past athletes.
Yeah, Mariah Fulbright, who passed away. I think it's been probably 6 years about now.
Yep. Sensei KP, he took a bib number 2, and so he's going to contact the family and send that into them. So, it's one of these things that you're running, but you're running for a greater purpose. So, continue to keep those that you love in your mind and in your heart when you're running. And it's amazing the healing process that can occur from that. So,
for sure.
That was a good experience. We look forward to doing it next year. If you sign up before, I think the 5th, you get a little bit of a discount. I'm telling you, we need to get a group of everyone down there because it is a powerful experience when you have a group of people all geared up, dressed the same, kind of. You turn a lot of eyes, don't you?
Yeah.
It's a great platform to promote your recovery.
Be ready to be patient because, yes, that's a lot of people.
Live and learn, right?
To get wherever you want to go in Vegas, but also, that starting line, I think, maybe in 45 minutes from
about an hour.
Okay, we're going to start going to getting to the start.
Like I said, they botched it this year. They didn't do that last year. They kept everybody pretty corralled, but who knows? Maybe it's so cold they want everybody to get out of there. You bundle up, you warm together.
I saw some costumes that maybe try next year.
Nice.
At least some LED lights, something.
Absolutely. I'd love to get Emma down there to push her. That was probably one of the most amazing things as we were making our way to the starting line, which was forever away. We got to see the disabled athletes and being pushed by their runners. And I started cheering for them. And it was funny because everyone's kind of watching, but once you start cheering for them, then everyone started cheering for them. And you could see their smiles and they felt like little celebrities out there.
They went first, so that was fun to be able to see them take off.
So it would be fun to maybe get Emma and even Abby down there to be able to run there with them. But so who knows? But maybe that's something we can put into work for next year.
Heck yeah.
But nonetheless, we do have lots of other stuff to talk about. Marissa, we've been getting a lot of inquiry for some from parent to child kind of, I guess, I don't know, ideas and understandings on what's going on with children, with teenagers,
teens,
specifically about addiction. We've gotten some in the private practice. We've gotten a lot that have come through, the team here. You and I were kind of going through some questions that we'd received, and it looks as though there's a lot that maybe parents aren't really prepared for, or maybe even realize is happening now. We all know that with the invention of the vape pen, that it's become a huge problem in the teen world. It was crazy because through the late 90s, early 2000s, tobacco use went way down with teens, way down, to the point where the tobacco companies were kind of getting nervous about, are we going to be able to create lifetime smokers if they're not doing this? And things like the Clean Air Act and just the stigma of what it is and how bad it can be. It really did work. But then the invention of the vape pen came, and it was promoted as a safer alternative, a little more clean. And what they're finding is, although some of those things are true, the repercussions are still quite profound.
There's a lot of people that can cut down on smoking by using vape pens. But I remember years ago, a few of our athletes doing it to cut down, and they ended up saying they ended up smoking more because it was a little more acceptable. It didn't smell, and they could smoke in more places that they couldn't cigarettes. And so they ended up increasing their addiction because it was, easier to do. Absolutely.
And then with things that they've been able to do with like oils and whatnot, you also see them using like tobacco and then THC and things of that nature. And I'm telling you, it's a new problem. And we don't know the long-term issues that we do with they say like traditional smoking, right?
Yeah.
Because it's still so new. These folks that have been using this for the past 5, 6, 7 years since they've been popularized, we haven't seen any long-term issues yet because
we don't know.
They're coming. Does that make sense?
Yep.
But it is challenging when you get parents or guardians of these young ones that have this stuff. And we have been asked quite a bit about, what does it mean? What do I do? There's so many levels of disconnection with family systems these days. we should jump into a little bit, but the recent survey that I found on the National Institute of Drug Abuse was kind of interesting. It talked about, this kit was released just in December, so it's fairly new.
Yeah.
And it talks about that reported substance use among adolescents held steady in 2022. It didn't increase too much, but it held steady. And I think that was kind of interesting because we're coming off the heels of COVID, which threw a lot of kids into this bizarre kind of, like emotional funk. But it still says that nicotine vaping is the number one thing that they'll do. Yeah. So, they used to say marijuana is the gateway drug, which is kind of funny because even that's kind of obscure these days. But really, truly, it's nicotine. And if you really wanted to get down to it, it'd probably be caffeine and sugar. So, you look at like what these gateway drugs are, it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But vaping remained pretty stable for through the grades that were surveyed. This is the grades 12, 10, and 11th grades. And they found that cannabis use remains stable for those three groups. But alcohol actually increased and illicit drug use actually increased. And so they did see some of that. And I think that's with the introduction of fentanyl that is pretty much in everything these days. We're seeing that there's increases there. And the scary thing is an increase slightly with the Vicodin, Oxycontin, and Percocets. And, we got to start looking at that Vicodin, Oxycontin, and Percocets will create in the future heroin addiction simply because it's going to be easier to get than those pills.
Cheaper.
So we look at this and we think, okay, so then what can we truly do? What do we got to look for? What do we, what happens when, we catch our kids vaping or we catch our kids using marijuana?
Kids get caught at school. Yeah. How do you react?
Kids that get caught at school is kind of an interesting thing because it's kind of a double whammy, right? We have zero tolerance when it comes to that kind of stuff. And so there are big problems that can arise there. Now, again, if you remember, one of the things we have to be aware of is that you typically don't realize that your youth has an issue with this on average until about 2 years after they start. Now, sometimes you're lucky you catch it a little earlier. Sometimes it goes a little bit longer, but on average, it's about 2 years. Yeah. And the reason why is because it doesn't happen all at once. It's not something that just, cannonballs into your lifestyle. These things are subtle and they're explainable, right?
Yeah. And
then sometimes there's the full-fledged, proof. But in a world where we're so busy as parents to not slow down and to take, I guess, some stewardship stock of what our kids are going through, we could be setting ourselves up for some heavy, heavy issues later in life. You and I watched a show last night that was interesting. I wasn't going to talk about this, but it kind of fits into this.
Yes, it does.
I think it was called The Fallout.
Yeah.
The Fallout. It's a premise. It has what's her name? Jenna Ortega, who's Wednesday, right?
Wednesday, yeah.
She's in comes from a home of just her and her sister, and the parents are together, right?
Yeah.
And she goes to a school, and there's a school shooting, and it's right pretty much at the beginning, and the trauma, even though she didn't see anything. Mm-hmm. She experienced it through the feelings of being unaware because she was in the bathroom when the shooter came into the school.
And having it affect her friends. And
her friends and, the situation of being scared in the stall and another student come running in with blood on him. And it was a lot of traumatic kind of like...
Yeah.
I guess, impassable emotions at the time.
Really just watching how trauma can affect somebody and that fallout from traumatic events.
So the things that started to bother me were right out of the gate, where obviously she'd gone through some heavy trauma, and the people around her, they missed a lot of the warning signs. The isolation, the mute attitude, where it was kind of like quiet and being soft and being withdrawn. And you had one daughter who was a little bit younger, who wasn't in the school, that was still bubbly and excited and happy, and she seemed more in tune with what her sister needed than the parents. And that truly bothered me.
Yeah.
Without giving too much away, because I think it's worth watching, especially with your children. There were situations that kind of arose by which there were opportunities that parents completely missed because they didn't know how to approach the conversation.
Yeah.
And they kept on trying to reinforce the fact that you're going to be okay. You just need to X, Y, and Z. And that's not always the case.
Yeah.
And the other thing that was interesting is that...
I thought it was very interesting it was probably within the first week of the shooting, which obviously it was hard on everyone, not just... But the family's sitting at dinner and parents aren't saying a word. Not like, hey, let's, they were just like as shell-shocked as the girl, which is understandable, but the younger sister was talking at dinner, and that's it. And you were like...